they doing that? So if you go and you download the handout pack that is in the app, there are clickable links throughout that. It's basically like a presentation that's similar to mine, but those clickable links will give you some, there are videos on those clickable links that go with the slides, and that's going to give you a little bit of background to help with any confusion as to how we actually got here, where we're going to be today. So it'll still make sense, but I think it's going to be really helpful if you compare some of what we got through yesterday to really appreciate the method to the madness that we're going to get into today. So for those folks, and if you're at a table with any of those folks and they look perplexed or confused at any point, feel free to whisper over to them anything that you think might be helpful that we maybe hit last night. If you feel the need to do that, you are welcome to. So what we're going to do today, and I realize my presentation is in the wrong part. So this is real teacher talk about the science of reading, the science of learning, and the kids who eat their shoes and lick the carpet, who are our audience if we're teaching reading specifically. Because if we're teaching reading, we're doing this, we're delivering this to the beginning grade learners. And if you teach at the beginning grades, you know that many of them are eating their shoe, licking the carpet, rolling around, and doing pretty much anything else they can possibly think of to do that would be interesting or entertaining to them. So being able to teach them while their shoe is in their mouth and know that we're getting good bang for the buck in that instruction, that's really critical. And that's what we're going to kind of look at today. Now, if you are at an upper grade, I'm going to show you how this scales upward to kids who might have holes in their knowledge, especially when it comes to the code and reading. But no one compares to the empty hole that is a kindergartner in terms of knowledge of the code. I mean, kindergartners are basically just one big hole, one empty space of awareness when it comes to phonics, patterns, and sounds. So they're really the best place to look and to kind of show impact, because they don't just have sporadic holes, they have nothing. They are a perfect zero-based knowledge learner. So if you take what they do and then you kind of parallel it up to what you think your struggling fourth graders might be able to do, there's no better place to demonstrate it than with kids who know nothing. So yesterday we talked about the gap between how we teach reading and what we know about the brain. Today we're going to actually go into it. We're going to become part of this space between what we know about how we learn versus how we actually teach these skills. And we're going to do that by putting ourselves in kids' shoes. Not just any kid, but these zero-based knowledge learners, these kids at the very, very, very beginning grade levels who literally know nothing. So no matter how much you think the kids struggle that are having difficulty at your level, you don't get any more clueless than a kindergartner. So that's where we're going to start, and we're going to pretend that we are one brain. And I say we, but what I really mean is each table. So each table is going to be one brain with one hand, unless you have a lot of people at your table, in which case you're going to be two brains with two hands, because you have to be able to see a piece of paper that the person who is the hand will be writing on. So the first thing we're going to do is pick the hand. So if you have a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen, and you will volunteer to be the hand at your table, or if we need to, like I can see some tables that are too full, like there was one. Like that one's probably too full to have. You guys might be able to work together. The trick is just, can you see the paper well enough to connect? If you can, then you're fine. If you can't, then two people at each table would need to have a pen or pencil. So you guys decide, whoever's going to be the writer, if you could put the pencil or the pen on your head, that tells me you're going to be the hand of your group. And if there are two people at your table that are the hands, that's fine too. Just totally based on what you guys can see and can't see. Okay, if you don't have a piece of paper or a pencil or a pen and you need to borrow one, just wave to let me know and we'll give you what you need. Okay, perfect. All right, so hand can come down. It looks like everybody's got what they need. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to work together as one brain. So each table is a brain. And all of you make that up. The person with the pen is going to be writing onto the paper as we go. And what we're going to do first is prepare a paper. So we're going to draw an outline of the brain. No letters in it, just a lumpy looking circle that takes up about 3/4 of the page. So if you're the hand, if you could draw that shape on your paper, doesn't have to be pretty, just a lumpy circle is fine. 3/4 of the page so that you have a little space on the margins. Okay, now that you have your lumpy circle, here's what we're going to put inside of it. And this is where the rest of the brain comes in, because we're going to need everybody helping to figure this out. But it's very easy. As a group, one brain, I want you to pick together 10 letters, and then the hand is going to write them inside the brain. So work together as a group to pick 10 letters and then write them inside your brain. Any 10 letters. You got about 10 more seconds, so don't take too long to figure it out. If you have to just slap a K, P, and R down, that's fine too. There's really no right answer, but I know we all like different letters. Okay, about 5 more seconds. Okay, time's up. So if you're missing a couple letters, just throw a couple down and make sure you've got 10. Okay, next thing you're going to do is, again, together as one brain, come up with 5 high-frequency words, and you want to fit those also in the brain wherever they can go, like just in and around your letters, anywhere they'll fit. 5 words. They don't have any connection to the letters. They don't have to be made up of the letters. They're totally just on their own, just 5 words, any 5 words you like. 5 high-frequency words. Words that you might find handy to know, to use. Okay, about 10 more seconds. Okay, time's up. If you're short a word or two, just add a 2, a 4, and an and that should be good. Okay, now this is going to be a little bit more creative. Together, as one brain, decide on your favorite animal, and then sketch it out off to the side in the margin wherever it will fit. So this is the only thing that's not going to go in the brain. It's going to go on the outside. And it has to be a group decision, so really do talk about what your favorite animal is, and then agree on one. It doesn't have to be a good sketch, by the way. Just like recognizable would be helpful, but even if it's not that recognizable, it's still okay. Just whatever your best rendition of the animal is fine. Okay, put the finishing touches on your animal. Got about 10 more seconds. If you still haven't decided on one, pick fast. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is to prevent cheating, because you will be tempted to cheat, as kids are as well, on this next part once you see what's on the next slide. So to prevent, and by cheating I mean changing your animal, morphing it into something else, which you'll be tempted to do once you know what you're going to have to do. So to prevent that from happening, we're going to do an independent animal verification. And what that means is, when I count to 3, not yet, but when I count to 3, you're going to show your animal to another group, and they're going to try to identify it. If they guess wrong and they think it's like a duck and it's actually a squirrel, just say, no, it's a squirrel, and it's fine that they thought it was a duck, because there's a witness now that knows what it was supposed to be. So don't do it yet. Don't show anybody yet. But when I count to 3 and you show it to someone, now you're going to make sure that there is another witness that knows what's supposed to be on your page. So it cannot change into something else later, because somebody out there will know that that's not what it was. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so everybody has a witness now, so whatever you've got, you're stuck with. That is your animal, no matter how you feel when you see the next slide. Now, when you see the next slide, you will understand why there would be a temptation if you were a kid to get out your eraser and start turning your iguana into a cat as best you're able. You'll see why that would be so tempting. Because what you're going to do is using only the 10 letters and the 5 sight words that you know, which means what's in your brain, that's what you know. And congratulations, if this were kinder, you'd be at the head of the class because you already have almost half of the alphabet and a bunch of sight words. And to get that far, we could probably be in the middle of the year for you to be proficient with just that little bit of the code. But you're there, so congratulations. Now we're going to see if you can use that to write what your animal is, meaning the name of the animal. Don't just call it Gus. I need to know if it's a bear or a cat. This is content knowledge measurement. What your animal is, and tell me why you like it so much. Using only the 10 letters and the 5 sight words that you know. Good luck. This is either really easy or really hard, depending on the luck of the draw and the letters and the animal match that you've got. By the way, you can't break apart your sight words into letters because you only learn those by sight as a whole. You don't actually own the sounds that go into making them up. So the words are a one-trick pony. You can only use it as a word, not as individual letters. I see some of you just staring at your paper like you don't know what to write. So if I do see you doing that, I might come up to you and pat you on the back as your teacher and say, sound it out. Would that be helpful, given what you're looking at? It's really hard to do something with nothing. Okay, now I'm going to stop you for one quick second, and if you are the writer, can you stand? I know you're not even close to probably starting, let alone done, and that's fine, but stand for me if you're the writer. Every writer at every table, if you would just stand up for a second, and I want you to put your writing on your chair. There's a really important reason for this. Take your writing, whatever it is, even if you haven't written anything yet, and you're still thinking, that's fine. Take your notebook and put it on your chair. Okay, now I want you to sit on it like an egg. And no, this isn't part of the magic trick where now the writing's going to do itself. But there is a really important reason that I do want you to sit on this like an egg. And the reason is I want to show you a video of teachers doing this all across the country so you can see outside of the bubble that's your own scenario, which is, by the way, based totally on the luck of the draw. Whatever letters you happen to pick, whatever animal you happen to choose, and now you're either in a great position or you have literally nowhere to go. So what helps is to see all the variations of that. And if I don't have you sit on your writing, inevitably people will still keep trying to do this because it's so frustrating to have it severed. So I will tell you, you don't actually have to keep sitting on it if it's not comfortable, but don't put it anywhere that anyone in your group can get a hold of it and start going back to it again. Because the only purpose of it in a short 1-hour session is to show you the initial situation. What would I do if I had to actually use this to do that? Now we're going to flesh it out because we want to go faster since we only have an hour. And I want you to see how this kind of continues through fruition. So you don't have to sit on it if it's hurting your bottom, but just put it, hide it somewhere. Because somebody from your group will try to get it back. So what are you guys trying to figure out?
I think a rat.
Oh, but that's not a rat, that's a cat, right? I want to turn it up just a little.
Are you cheating already? That's why we have vacation done. Are you trying to change your cat into a rat because you could spell rat easier?
Just a little louder.
I just like the way your face looks right now as your eyes are rolling all over your like, so you're going to see something that's not already there the 18th time they roll over those letters. This spot rum to me. He brings rum to you. Wow. Got him well trained. Is that a college trick he picked up? Is that what he keeps in that little? Now, I love that. What would go at the very end of that?
A period.
A period. Very good. And then I'm going to ask you to tell me what Spot is. Can you tell me what kind of an animal he is?
Not using newsletters.
You mean you don't know how to write? Well, tell me first of all, what is he?
A dog.
A dog. So do you know how to spell the word dog? And keep in mind, that's what you know.
Nope.
Nope, you don't. Can you try?
Sure.
How?
B-O-V.
Oh, that's very good, actually, because that's really close. Because I got the ah sound that I need. It's just the d sound. Do you remember that letter that makes that sound? It's so tricky. And I know it's not in your brain. That would be a D. That would be the first one.
Okay.
So if you put a D-O, and we'll talk about the letter that you need at the end in just a bit.
Me like the dog. Me like the dog.
That works. That's creative. Yeah, that's a good way to get around that. Is it because you don't have an eye?
Yeah, we don't have an eye.
But me likes dog. That would be a good option. And why do you like the dog? Because you also have to tell me why you like the dog.
The dog is dead.
They killed their dog because they could spell the word dead.
Do you have letters to make? You do have letters to make dead. Okay, that would work. I guess that would be sad, and I'll refer you to the counselor, but I guess you could do that.
The dog is dead.
You said me like the dog is dead.
The sad dog is lost. The sad dog is lost.
Tricky. Well, you know what? Just do what you can. Just write what you can.
I'm sure she just wanted to hit me because she had the world's worst letters. She had I don't even know how she must have intentionally picked letters that are odd because it was like Q and Z and just weird letters. And she had nowhere to go with whatever the animal was. She didn't even have a single letter that went with the picture. So it was fun because, she just sat there staring at her paper like a kid does when they don't know what to write. And the truth is she didn't know what to write because she had nowhere to go. So I did to her what we do as teachers. I patted her on the back and said, just sound it out. Now, clearly I can see the issue. What does she say? And if she were to speak back, which she didn't, if kids could speak back, which they can't because they wouldn't understand the situation they're in, they would say, how? How would you propose I sound that out? With what? What would I sound that out with? This is what I know. You know and I know none of these letters actually go toward what I need to do this. So how would you propose I go about sounding this out? Now, we might also say, well, that's okay then, honey. If you can't set it out, just do your best. Again, with what? What do I do my best with? I don't have it. It's not here. How do I do my best with something I don't have? Now, they don't say that because kids don't know that. She wanted to say that, which is why she closed her mouth. If you read body language, she went, because kiddingly, but I'm sure she wanted to say, really, sound it out? How would you go about doing this? You sound it out, because it's not possible. Now, kids don't know anything other than they don't know what to write, because they don't have what they need to do that writing. And I don't mean all kids, but I will say almost all kids if it's an early grade level, because we haven't given them what they need to do the writing, because the curriculum is going to piece and parcel it out with very slow delivery, one puzzle piece at a time. So we are doing something with nothing all day long, every hour, every day, every week, every month, every year, until such time as they have enough pieces to actually partake. In the interim, what they're doing is they're getting exposure, not experience, exposure. Experience is what the woman got that had the dog that brought rum to her. She got a lot more bang for the buck out of this activity, this 15-minute activity. That, by the way, when you plan a 15-minute activity for your class, you expect everybody to be able to take away value from that activity. You don't create the lesson thinking, well, Johnny and Sarah are going to get a ton out of this. Susie's not going to get anything. When we do something, we're thinking, okay, we're going to give kids this activity so that we can teach this, this, and this, and they're all going to get a chance to reinforce X, Y, Z as they're doing Z, Y, X. But that isn't actually what's happening if the activity is reading and writing, because it's all based on what they bring to the table. The more you bring to the table, the more value you take away. So the one whose dog brought rum to her, she brought a lot to the table. And by the way, she didn't actually, this activity is purely luck of the draw. Whatever letters you happen to pick, and however well or not they happen to correlate with your animal dictates how successful you're gonna be. But as a regular kid, whatever you've got in terms of pieces of the code to work with, or reading experience and exposure at home that give you words that you can remember to incorporate, or whatever your base of knowledge is that you bring to the table, that's gonna dictate what you do at the table. And that's gonna dictate how much value you get from doing it. So she brought a lot of sounds to the table, and you could tell that because she not only got the words down, she got a whole sentence. So when I popped over, I could see she had gotten to reinforce the sounds that she knew by using them to build these words. She actually got so far that she was able to use describing words about her dog and what his purpose was, that he could run to her. She and I got to talk about punctuation, and we would have even gotten to talk about capitals because that's how far she got, and it showed me a wall that she hit that I could focus on. I even got to add another piece to her puzzle because she gave me enough to see where she was struggling, which was in the word dog. She only had the B-O-V. So I got to give her another piece about the sound at the beginning and make a mental note that later I might pop over and talk about the sound at the end. So when she walked away from the table, she had a lot more than she did when she sat down. But when that poor blonde lady walked away from the table, she had absolutely no more than she did when she sat at the table because she didn't bring anything to work with. I couldn't tell what she knew or what she didn't. She couldn't reinforce skills she didn't have. I can't build on something that's not there. So she got exposure. She got to watch what other people look like when they did it, and that was pretty fun. Maybe someday I can write like that. But she didn't actually get to partake. And exposure is definitely it's better than being locked in a closet for sure, but it doesn't hold a candle to experience. But experience is based on what you've got. That's what dictates the value of what you take away. So if you compound this little experiment across an entire day, across an entire week, across an entire month, across an entire year, and think how long some kids go trying to do something with nothing. All the way up into the middle school grades and high school grades, actually, because this doesn't really change. Kids were always gonna gravitate to just doing or using what they know. In the early grades, what that means is when they wanna write about, let's say, their pet snake, and boy, they love their pet snake. Or actually, I used the word Howard yesterday, and I never mentioned why he had a mouse next to him. It's because Howard, who again, wouldn't be able to read or write his own name and kinder if all he knew were letter sounds, because his name would be Ha'awa-Arada. He wants to write about his pet mouse. That's his favorite thing in the world, is his pet mouse. Do you know if Howard's in kindergarten? The OUOW is typically on scopes and sequences introduced in 2nd grade. His mouse will be dead by the time he gets the ow sound he needs to write about him. He won't be able to write about his mouse until his mouse is gone. That's how long, if we just let the curriculum dictate what we give when, he will have to wait for the ow sound. So not only won't he know why he's Howard until the pacing guides allows us to give that piece of the code to him, which he needs constantly every day, but he can't read and write about the thing that he loves the most. Can he just memorize the word mouse? Sure. Can he copy it off a word wall? Yes. But the idea is that that word wall becomes the place kids go who don't have the tools to read and write. They just make do with whatever words we give them. And they continue to do this ongoing. And the problem with that is that's not real writing. That's not the kind of writing that pulls you in and keeps you interested. That's just going through the motions and then doing something else. Writing and reading are identical processes in the brain up to the point of automaticity. So when kids are putting sounds together to make words, it's reinforcing the process of how they can take them apart as they're trying to read. So one begets the other as long as memorization isn't the norm. If almost everything is memorized, there's almost no connection between reading and writing. But really, at its essence, reading and writing is like carpentry with blocks. You're putting things together to create something, and then you can take those pieces apart and reconstruct them into something else. And what you can put together, you can take apart. And what you can take apart, you can manipulate and put back together. So owning those pieces is where the real power lies. Because then you can do anything, you can say anything, you can read anything, not just controlled text or being reliant on, like I said, the word wall. The reason that folks will want to change their animal is because you'll typically want to just draw an animal you can spell. Right? You might love the iguana, and that's what you really were excited about, but you can spell cat, so you would change your iguana to a cat in a heartbeat if that meant you could spell it. So that's what we don't want. And yet that's the norm at the early grades, and it's intentional. And that's what kills me, is that we don't see the kind of hollowing out of the value of the constant reading and writing that we're engaging kids with all day long from the very earliest grade level. We don't recognize that all the time that's happening, they're only taking away as much as they can bring to it. So the more of the code they bring to it, the more value they get out of every minute that they're engaging with words, with text, with reading, with writing, with you reading a big book, with them looking at the word list that's on the science test, or whatever it is that you're doing. We want them to come to it with something to make sense of it with. And I used an analogy in the last session, and to me it was like an epiphany moment for myself. Raise your hand if you wear reader glasses to read. Like, to look at a menu or look at print, like you need reader glasses. Keep your hand up if you never did need that before, and it only was like an age thing, like all of a sudden you hit 40 and you couldn't see a menu. Like it started where you had to take the flashlight out, right? And then that wasn't even enough. And now if you don't have your glasses, you cannot make sense of what's on the menu. Okay. That's me now. So I have contacts in, but I had perfect vision, which I love to rub into my husband forever because he didn't. But now he can see a menu and he can read it. I don't know why near sight. I guess if you're, depending on what your vision issue is. So he, for some bizarre reason, can actually see the menu. I've gone from it looks a little blurry to I need a little more light to literally cannot make sense of anything on that menu. So like a teacher, I have to look at the waitress and say, would you read this to me? Can you tell me what that says? Because otherwise I'm just looking at it, but I have no way to make sense of it. So it's of no value to me whatsoever. I could look at it all day long. It wouldn't mean anything more to me later than it does right now, because I cannot make sense of it until I have something to make sense of it with. That's how kids have got to feel as they're staring at words all day long and they have literally no way to make sense of what they're looking at. Are they staring at them? Yes. Are we doing our job and making sure they're engaging with the words that the book gives us to show them? Yes. Are we going through the writing activity every day? Yes. But what bang for the buck are we getting out of all that time compared to what we could if they had a little more? A little more this week than last week. A few more letter sounds, a few more phonics secrets this week than they had the week before. Every piece is power. If you could have just one more letter, any letter you wanted, after you realized what you had to do on this writing activity, would that have made a huge difference? Like it could have been like all or nothing. If you have a pig and you have no letters in the word pig, just having a P would have helped you have a place marker for what that word was supposed to be. Every piece of the code is incredible power. So instead of slowing it down under the name of structure, we need to speed it up as fast as we can. But I don't mean that in a way where I'm saying, okay, make it harder, make it faster. I mean going back to those brain-based connections we talked about that everybody understands. Laying it out like a buffet because everybody knows what a car says when it stops fast. Applying it is going to look different for every kid. Some kids will just run around and make a lot of noise in your room going, every time you talk about that ER, IR, UR, and how they're terrible, awful, horrible drivers. And let's say you show them the embedded mnemonic. They're just going to enjoy, you can see it way at the bottom, it's blurry, but they're just going to enjoy the fun and the sounds that go with the connection they understand, which is when cars stop, the brakes squeal. Application is going to depend on their readiness to see its purpose. And that's where every kid's going to be different. Just like if you lay chicken salad out on a buffet, everybody's going to be different. Some are going to devour it in a heartbeat because you love it, especially when they put those little cut up grapes in it. And others aren't going to touch it with a 10-foot pole because you don't like stuff that's like all mayonnaise-y. And that's perfectly fine. But what if you needed that chicken salad? What if the doctor said you have to eat a cup of chicken salad with every meal to take this pill? Well, now it's on the radar. It's going to happen across the day. We're going to have it, so we need to know where it is so we can grab it at a moment's notice. So having access to those sound symbol relationships, and when I say speed it up, deliver it faster, you're not a waitress delivering a skill. You're a buffet kind of feast provider offering up like a bountiful array of things to be explored and used and grabbed when needed. Totally different. A waitress can stress you out because a waitress can deliver way more than you're able to eat, and to the point where your meal's ruined because everything's cold and you're not ready. Or they can slow things down too much. and you're waiting forever to get some water or to get a dessert. And waitresses are so overworked because there's so many people that need so many things at so many different levels, and you can't be everywhere at once. I can't keep you busy. If I'm stressed, I'm going too fast for you, but I'm going too slow for you, and you guys need more, and you guys need me to go back. And that's a teacher trying to deliver these skills. A buffet is very different. You can't be stressed out at a buffet, because it's all up to you. If you want it, help yourself. If it's a little bit more than you're ready for, wait, don't get it yet. But the minute you're ready for it, you hit the ground and you go. It's right there. And if you ate too much, that's your fault. Just because there were 200 things on the buffet didn't mean you had to eat all of them. They're just there for the taking. You can't be starved at a buffet. You don't have to wait. And you can't be overwhelmed because you're in the driver's seat. So when we use those neuroscience connections to give access to these tricky things called phonics skills that span across all grade levels, but we're giving access as we need to right from the beginning, you're not delivering them in a way that is in any way stressful or problematic. Stories do no harm. That's why you could read Cinderella and Snow White on the same day and not go home and say, oh no, I shouldn't have done that. I don't think my kids could handle Snow White and Cinderella, and then I added Rumpelstiltskin. I don't even know what I was thinking. Like, no harm. Stories have this beautiful way of like lingering in the air, making sense at the level kids are able to connect with them. You might read a story about Cinderella and the stepsister, or the stepmother might trigger something in a kid who just had a parent get remarried, and they might come up crying and say, I think I need to see the counselor because she has a stepmother and I have a stepmother and I'm afraid my stepmother might end up being like her stepmother. And another kid might just come up to you and say, I like her shoes. Those slippers were pretty. Like totally different takes on what they heard based on what they brought to the table to make sense of it with. So stories do no harm. And giving access to more sooner, earlier in this kind of backdoor to the brain way, which I know if you weren't here last night, that's going to sound confusing, but I promise your handout will catch you up. People that were here, you know what I'm talking about. That's where the power lies to make these activities like the one we just did useful. That poor group that was going to kill their dog because they could spell the word dead, that's horrible that they had to resort to such a terrible thing just to get done with the writing activity because they could spell dead. I'm sure when they drew that beautiful picture of their dog, their intention wasn't to murder it. Their intention was to say how it made them laugh when it fetched the cute bone or how it had the cutest little bed that grandma made for it. But when push comes to shove and you got to get the activity done and you don't have anything you need to do it, you use what you can. And I just thought that was so interesting to see how far away we will go from what we actually want to say or do just to satisfy whatever that activity might be. And then there's no value in that. One more thing before I get to this part is writing is the best x-ray into the skill set of a reader. So when you can get them to give you what they've got and outlay that on a paper, you can see where all the walls are. You can see where the next thing is that they need. You can see what they've got to work with. If the picture's a pig and they've only given you the P and the G, that tells you they're having some trouble with those vowel sounds. Now, if they can't even give you the P and the G because let's say it's a letter a week time and the P won't come up until March, then all you're getting is the G. And so you don't know whether it's a vowel that's an issue, whether it's the P, maybe they have auditory processing issues because those vowels are tricky. Or if you're from the South, or if you're from like the Northeast, Like those sounds can range like the wind, and kids aren't that great at hearing and articulating them. And that's sad because vowels are the keys to the kingdom. If you don't have those, you can't read anything. You can't spell anything. And in upper grades, where multisyllabic words are the name of the day, those vowels are critical. So they're just little building blocks, but they make a world of difference. So all these things come into play when we look at this x-ray of a reading skill that is writing. And I just wanted to share this because it really sums up what this was for. This was a teacher who did this activity virtually online, and she had her 10-year-old son with her who just, for the heck of it, decided to do it with her. And this is what he told her. The teacher said, my 10-year-old was watching this video with me this morning, and he did this writing activity with me, and he said, Mom, she's not being fair. How am I supposed to write 2 sentences with these letters and words? I could write so much better if I had more letters to make more words. And his mom's like, yeah, buddy, that's the point. So how do kids see the hypocrisy and, I'm almost going to call it ridiculousness of having to do something with nothing, and we don't always see it, and curriculum doesn't always see it. I think it's because they don't always see that there's a different way in. If you were teaching all these skills as abstract letter sounds and phonics skills, you would have to go slow no matter what. And it's unfortunate that you need more to do more with, but you know what? They're eating their shoe, they're concrete thinkers, these are abstract skills. It's gonna take a long time to teach them, and some kids are gonna take even longer than a long time. But there's a different way to do it. There's another path that we're gonna look at. We're actually gonna do this with individual sounds. I'm gonna show you the muscle memory way to get those in so that you can simultaneously give access to both these individual sounds and the sounds letters make together, but happening in tandem. And when we have those other ways to deliver something that so clearly needs to be given sooner, and we opt not to do that, that's what just drives me batty. So I am hoping and excited to see that the use of this other areas of neuroscience, how we actually learn, where the ends are, where those backdoor access points lie, are finally becoming so well, not well known, but at least discussed. The more pieces you have, obviously, the more you can do, the less you can do. To spell the word flower, you need more than just individual letter sounds. You also need the sounds letters make together. But you do need those pesky individual sounds. The frustrating part about the alphabet letters, and this, you will be more inclined to appreciate alphabet letters at upper grades if you have ELL kids, because typically only then will you have kids that don't know letter sounds. Typically your extreme strugglers, even at the higher grades, they know the alphabet letters. Like, that is not an issue for English-speaking kids that maybe can't read a lick, but the alphabet letters are often what they will resort to if you force them to sound out a word that they don't know, because they don't own the phonics patterns. Now, in early grades, obviously, alphabet letters, we can suck up a whole year trying to teach the alphabet. Like, it takes forever, and they can't really do anything once they have it, other than read and write words like bit, hit, sat, rit, rat. You know, anytime there are letters coming together that make a different sound, we're out of luck. At the upper grades, though, it is handy to have this tool in your back pocket, because if you get kids who aren't English speakers natively, they've got to start all over at the beginning, which, of course, is where we're going to knock this out. Because I do want to show this. I didn't talk about this at all last night. But the better alphabet is the fastest way on planet Earth to give individual letter sound connections, not even teach, to give them. The most recent RCT study showed it shortened the time frame of acquisition from 2 weeks, it used to be 2 weeks to 2 months, now it's 2 weeks to 1 month. And this is with ELL students, a cluster of about 4 SPED kids per class in Texas across the grade level. And what was really interesting, and this was kinder, they used the program, I think it's CKLA, and if I'm correct, if it is CKLA, it doesn't show letters. The curriculum does not actually let kids see the letters. They're doing phonemic awareness only up until, I think, October. And then in October, they start introducing the actual letters, I think 2 per week, or maybe it's either, I think it's 1 per week up until December, and then it's 2 per week, or it's like 1 per week and then it goes to 2 per week. But the most important thing was they don't show the letter symbols until October. The kids in the control group that were not using the better alphabet melodic mnemonic versus the kids that were, the treatment group were finished with individual letter sound mastery almost a month before CKLA had even introduced the A, or what the A looked like. So when the curriculum was going to actually show them the letter symbol, because up until that point it was just all phonemic awareness exercises and activities, but no letters were to be shown at all. So by the time the curriculum got ready to begin introducing the alphabet letters, they had already been finished with mastery of them and acquisition of all of those letter sound connections. So it was just interesting to see, again, the unnecessary slowdown. And I'm not saying anything negative about CKLA, because honestly, almost every single program is going to be geared toward taking a year in kinder in terms of what you can expect for, your whole bell curve to pick up all these letters and sounds. And it's certainly not unusual for kids to get to first grade, and because you can't use letters and sounds by themselves, unless you have some phonics patterns to pair with it, how are you gonna get a lot of automatic natural reinforcement of letter sound connections if all you have are individual sounds? So because of that, kids who aren't supported at home will go home over the summer having no way to actually reinforce any of these things they learned by the skin of their teeth. They come to first grade and they've forgotten a bunch of their individual letters and sounds. So now it's not unusual that first grade has to go back and reteach those individual letters and sounds for a lot of the kids who didn't get them in kindergarten. And on it goes. So the problem with these is they suck up so much time, and yet they don't give you much bang for the buck. So I'm gonna show you how to knock them out quickly. The melodic mnemonic is something that's typically used in clinical settings, not education settings. It's gonna sound like a song, but it isn't. It's a way to reinforce muscle memory, which is in the earlier developing area of our brain, where that feeling and emotional-based connection, those affective learning networks we talked about, it's even earlier developing than that. We can trigger it with pitch, rhythm, and intonation. But a melodic mnemonic is different from a song. Songs also have pitch, rhythm, and intonation. But songs are a one-trick pony. Because if you try to capture information in a song, the downside is, to access it, you have to start at the beginning, right? And you have to sing all the way through, which is a real pain if the information that's in there needs to be manipulated. Like even the months of the year. What happens if you teach a months of the year song? And then you ask a kid what comes before July? What do they have to do? Sing the song. And half the time they sing the song, forget to listen to what they said before July, end up at December, and they still have no idea what comes before July. So what do they have to do? Sing it again. And that's because this area of the brain is playing the tape. This higher level processing center, executive functioning, is supposed to be listening to the tape, paying attention to what's happening, and then pulling the important information out of it when needed. But this part's much weaker. This part's fine, because this part's earlier developing. It's been moving for years. This part, for a lot of kids, is just, they're not there. So that's why some kids could sing it over and over and still not know what comes before July. Even though it's in there, it's not accessible. So with a melodic mnemonic, we're gonna repeat the pitch, rhythm, and intonation on every piece that we want kids to be able to pull, which means every letter sound pattern, we start the pitch, rhythm, and intonation again. So your ear's gonna pick it up as if it's a song, but it's actually 26 mini songs. And clinically, this is used, at least the purpose of melodic mnemonics, often when you look at research, and you can look at a lot of this in the meta-analysis that's on the website, if you want to go to it. It's really fascinating. It's used with aphasia patients, Parkinson's, stroke victims, any issue that creates difficulty in stringing words together, coming up with the next sound that needs to be made. So it gives us a way to control the next utterance of sound. And we're using the letter name to trigger the letter sound. And not just one sound, but every possible sound a letter can make by itself. So for C, k and s. For G, g and j. For the vowels, long and short. For the Y, y and E and I. It gets into the nooks and crannies of every sound a letter can make by itself, not phonics patterns, but by itself, in the most likely order, and it's all automated. And they can literally have their shoe in their mouth and do this. Well, they have to sing with their shoe in their mouth. That's a little hard. But they don't have to have the development yet of this higher level processing that is so often not there at the early grades. And the reason this takes forever if you're trying to teach through the front door. So I'm gonna show you an example of what this looks like, and I'm gonna show it to you with pre-K, because I just want you to see how much of a no-brainer it is. It's the most equal opportunity access you could have. I want you to notice when they're singing the letter names that then trigger the sound or sounds, there's no remembering. There's no thinking and trying to recall. Their eyes aren't going up and looking like you do when you're trying to remember something. This is flowing right off their lips, tongue, and teeth. It's just like, it's muscle memory. Like when you sing, the itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. There's a reason that 3-year-olds who don't know how to pronounce words yet, don't even necessarily know words yet, they might sing it like this. Itsy bitsy spider up water spout, down came we walk pied out. Like they're not actually remembering words. They haven't learned the lyrics. They are following a path that their lips, tongue, and teeth are taking them on from a familiar activity they do with you. They're making sounds that sound like the words to the best of their ability, but they don't even necessarily know what those words are or what a word is. They're just following a track. Now, the difference is that's a song, not a melodic mnemonic, but you're getting that next utterance of sounds. When I sing the itsy, bitsy. So what's triggering me to say bitsy? Saying itsy. The itsy bitsy spot, yeah, I don't say the itsy bitsy rabbit, like that would feel really weird. My lips, tongue, and teeth are already prepped to make the next sound because of the one that came before it in muscle memory. So what we're doing is just taking that up a notch by starting it over on every piece that they need to be able to do separately so they can manipulate this and have power over it. Now I'm gonna play this. I want you to notice that, just the ease and the non-conscious ability of these sounds coming out, including hard and soft sounds for C, which is, by the way, this is a short clip because it was on Instagram, so that's the only hard sound, soft sound letter you're gonna see in this clip. The next thing I want you to notice is that one of the kids is doing this. And the reason is the teacher's doing something out of the norm. She's videoing, whereas the kids are used to having to keep their eyes glued to the letters. And that's evidenced by the fact that she is so frustrated that they've broken with the normal habit that they do, because you know kids don't like you to change things when they're used to it being a certain way. The reason it's so important, and I was so excited to see that that's the norm, is because the visual's the one thing that's critical, and if you don't have it in place, this is all for no purpose at all. If kids don't see the letter when they're singing the sound, then this does nothing. The whole idea of this for reading and writing is to forge the letter symbol with the sound. So when you see the symbol, you say the sound. When you say the sound, you see the symbol. They've got to be glued together in the brain. If they're not looking at the letters when they're singing this, they will be able to sing all the letter sounds, but they'll have no idea what they look like, so they can't do anything with them at all. So it's critical that they have their eyes glued to the letters when they sing the sounds. And that's why I loved how frustrated she was, because it told me every other day in the classroom, this is the norm, which is awesome, because that's the one thing you can't see on a video. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and play it. I don't think there's anything else I had to say.
A, B, boom, 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 C,
But it can also say.
Now, I wish that were a longer clip. You're going to see what really I think matters and see more in this next clip when it's a letter sound assessment. But what I loved about that clip is that it shows the way this is being recalled. It's not being remembered, it's being recalled. When they're singing, B says b b b b b b b b, C says k k k k k, but it could also say it's just rolling off in the most likely order, no less. So does that mean if this little girl saw the word circus that she'd be able to try the k sound first and then resort to the sound if that didn't work? Not at all. I have no idea on the buffet whether she's eating this or just has access to it. Obviously she has access to it because she's owning and has the ability to create these sounds connected with the letter. And it's the letter name that's triggering the sound. C says k k k k k k, but it can also say so it's the letter name triggering the sound or sounds in most likely order, all there, ready and ripe for the taking, until such time as she's ready to take it and run with it and do something with it. Now the next slide, you're gonna see getting a little further. This is a letter sound assessment, all out of order. So there is no song. This is the little girl having to look at the letter the teacher points to, tell her the name and the sound. And what you'll notice is there's no break in between. Normally on a letter sound assessment, those are two skills. First, they have to remember the name of the letter. Then they have to remember the sound or sounds that it can make. And so those are two distinct questions, and they both have different answer times, and there's a pause between as you ponder the first, then you ponder the second. No pause whatsoever for this, because it's the name that's triggering the sound. That's how she's getting the sound. What you don't see, though, is that she has to know the letter by sight to get the name. She can't say C says k if she doesn't know that's a C. So that's why it's so important they're looking at the letters when they're singing the sounds. She clearly has because of what she's able to do. So this was posted in the Facebook group. The teacher said in September, the sweet kindergartner was still 4. She wasn't able to give me any letters or sounds. We sang the Better Alphabet song twice a day, every day. And by the way, you do have to do it twice a day if you want acquisition time to be in 2 weeks to a month. If you only do it once a day, you have to double the acquisition time. Okay, still good. Sorry, I got worried because I saw people come in. I thought, oh my gosh, am I already over? Okay, so she said, fast forward to the first week of November and watch what she can do. Can you hear a beautiful dialect? There's a second language spoken at home.
How about this one?
Hey, said. A says but you can also say a. That's
Yes.
Hello says
Yes.
D says and says Y says but you can also say E-R-I-R-E.
Yes.
Now, the teacher had to jump in and help her identify the why. If you notice that, the teacher jumped in and sang the first part with her. The teacher said, "Y says," and then that's all the teacher did. She said, yeah, but it could also say E or I or E or I and E, and she just went off like a rocket. So she couldn't do the easy part, which was just identify the why. But as soon as that letter name was identified and she was helped with it, she then immediately went through and did the harder part, which is not just the Y sound, but the positional sounds of Y, the other potential sounds it can make. That's so odd when the hard thing is the easy part, and the easy thing that we would think of as easy, recognizing the letter, is the hard part. But that's how powerful using that muscle memory is when you're trying to take the pressure off working memory. Because the reason you normally cannot teach letter sounds and phonics patterns together in tandem is it's way too much information. I can't learn what T is supposed to say, and then all of a sudden you tell me, oh, but when T is with this letter H, which you also don't know because H says T says T, but when you put them together, they're not going to say T or H. Instead, they're going to make this other sound called Th. But then if you hold your vocal cords, there's a voice and an unvoice. Like, you can't do that. But these are actually different things entirely. You can learn the itsy bitsy spider while you watch Dora and see the activity, the stories that's unrolling or unfolding in the Dora or whatever other TV show kids might be watching. You can do things that are living in different areas of the brain, and you can do those simultaneously with no working memory overload. This muscle memory recall isn't happening in this front higher level processing area of the brain, it's happening back here. So when kids are recalling these letter sounds, and then they see that E-R, I-R-U-R, let's say, and they go, "Arr!" Or they see the O-U-O-W, ow, or they see the T-H, those things can live side by side. And what's so important in that regard is the brain's a pattern-making machine. So the minute we see something that we think should look one way and it doesn't, we have this mental need to account for the discrepancy. We don't like to be told it just is, it just does, you just have to remember. Because everything we thought is supposed to be this, and now you're just saying it's not, but you're not telling me why. We think in a hierarchy of likelihood. Like, if you can't park in the front, you're gonna look around back, and if there's not a spot there, you're gonna go to the side. Maybe your friend lives nearby, you can head over to their house. Worst comes to worst, park over at that restaurant, and then you can Uber here. You've got this whole next most likely default system built into your thinking. You don't just pull up to the full parking lot and go, oh no, what will I do? And now you're just at a blank. Like, there's always a patterning system. So the best time to learn about why T isn't saying T, because he doesn't get along with H, and whenever they sit together, they always stick at their tongues and go, is when you learn the T. When you hear that T is supposed to say T is the best time to know, but if it's not, here's why. If it isn't doing what you think so, and I noticed you just tried to read this word and you couldn't, it's because there's a secret about it you don't know. Like, that's where you get those oh moments, because you're giving them the if not, then this. It also keeps you honest because you're putting your money where your mouth is. You're not just telling them to say T when they see a T, but then every time you do some weird thing with your tongue and you just never fill them in on it, because all they know is every time I try to read a word with a T in it, I'm always wrong. And it's weird because she tells me to do this, but that's not what she does when she reads those words. Like, the really cool part is to keep that credibility with kids. kids, so when you say it, it's true. And if it's not, boy, will they come at you, because they know there's a logical explanation and you just didn't tell them what it is yet. Like, they expect things to make sense. And that changes everything about this higher level processing, because this information does have to transfer from this area for use up to this area for application. So even this little girl, I don't know what her readiness to apply those sounds for Y is. All I know is it's in there. It's front-loaded or back-loaded, since it's the back door holding it, it's in there. When will it come out? Well, maybe when she sees me tell her that this month is July. It's July, guys, see, July, because there's sneaky Y. Now, I didn't tell you, I'm going to tell you about sneaky Y. He's Lex Luthor of the alphabet. But the bottom line is, when I point to the Y, even in a big book that's I, this author, she's not going to be totally lost in space as to why I'm pointing to a Y and saying I. Because she knows Y says but it could also say E or I or E or I or E. So that's not so odd that it's saying I. Now, I'll tell you why. All the vowels are superheroes. They have a power that no other letter in the alphabet has. I do have to tell you one thing. This kid loved the better alphabet so much, he wrote the lyrics. Isn't that funny? And boy, he was good. He wrote, A says, but it could also say A. He has the right number of A's and A's, and he even put the A, 2 cool letters for A. He did forget the second sound for C, as you notice, but then he went on to D, and when he realized he forgot the soft sound for C, he squeezed it in the middle. Can you see it? C says but it can also say, and then he wrote s. Anyway, he continued on, but he did have to end the alphabet when he was out of paper. Because, again, that's what kids do. So, okay, superhero vowels and Lex Luthor, sneaky Y. The easiest way to teach complicated information where it's constantly shifting or impacted by other things, like the vowels, because vowels can be long or short, and that's dictated by a trigger that we think of as open and closed syllables, but I'm just going to tell you, Mama E and babysitter vowels make it instantly obvious as to know which way the vowel's going to go, in a small word or in a multisyllabic word. But the bottom line is that makes them complicated. Add to that the fact that their sounds are tricky for kids to discern between, hard for them to necessarily articulate, and it just becomes kind of a messy thing, which is a real shame, because vowels are the keys to everything when it comes to reading. The easiest way to teach stuff like that is to pour it into a familiar framework and then use what you already know to navigate decision-making about the new stuff. The military does this, and it's called SBT, situation-based training. And it basically is a way to give soldiers who are going to take on something that they don't really know what's going to happen or what it's going to look like or what the best decisions might be in that context. They use familiar contexts and constructs to overlay the unfamiliar, and it's all been carefully aligned. So when they're in the new place, making new decisions, looking at new things, they're using a familiar structure to make decisions. And that's what we're doing by pouring these letter sounds into a bucket that's familiar for kids. Superheroes. Kids know certain features about superheroes. They're not surprising or complicated. They have a power that no one else has. Superhero vowels have a power no other letter has. Their power is they can say their name. But like all superheroes, they have to have a disguise, which kids also know. Every superhero has to have a disguise because you don't want anybody to know you're a superhero. So they have these little short and lazy disguises where they duck out of sight and no one suspects who they are. So if you look at your handout, your downloadable pack, it's got little video links embedded. You can hear me telling each one. I don't have time today because I want to kind of move to this bigger picture, but I'll tell you one just for fun. You notice that little girl's hand, you might not have, but on that letter sound assessment, she left the screen on the ah sound. When she said A says ah, you saw her hand leave the frame. It was because she was pulling the sound from a cue. The short and lazy sound for A is ah, and there's a reason. He basically doesn't want to end up at the doctor's office all the time like short and lazy O, which you'll find out about him. He's a hypochondriac. Anyway, it's a long story. Can't go into that now. But the bottom line is that's how she pulls the sound. Ah. Because she can't just grab it. It's not muscle memory that can be trusted to get it. It's too nebulous. There's not enough specific lip, tongue, and teeth change. It's just a slight variation to go from So we have to have a different hook to get them there. And for her, well, for all the kids, some kids don't need to keep using their hands for the cues. She did, probably because she's ELL. They don't have the ah sound in her language, and so that's how she pulls it. So her hand left, she gave it, and then her hand came back. So those short and lazy sounds, or those short and lazy disguises, are the sounds they make when they don't want anyone to know they're a superhero. Now, sneaky Y I want to mention because he's the Lex Luthor of the alphabet. Every superhero story has a villain who wants to take the power for himself. In the alphabet story, it is Sneaky Y. He snuck into the closets of Superhero E and Superhero I, and he took one of each of their capes, which is where their powers lie. So now, whenever he's at the end of a word and he doesn't think anyone can see him, or if he's hidden between other letters in a word, anytime he's not able to be spotted, he will always be wearing either his E or his I cape so that he can use their powers to make their sound. Like in the words mommy, or daddy, or sky, or July, or cyclone, or hydrogen. Anytime he doesn't think he can be spotted, he'll always be sneaky, and he'll always be using their superpowers. But when he's front and center, line leader of a word, like yes, you, yak, yellow, he'll always behave and do exactly what he's supposed to. Yeah. He's only sneaky when he's not the line leader. And kids are the same way, aren't they? When do they behave best? When they're at the front of the line. Some kids you won't even let be at the end of the line because you don't have any idea what they'll get up to back there. So that's kind of like sneaky Y. So kids can easily figure out what sound Y is most likely to make by thinking about how they would behave if they were at the very front, line leader, or hidden in the back. So now we've kind of got these parameters, and I'm going to show you now how to power it up. Because if you know vowels can be long or short, that isn't that helpful. It's like saying, well, you could go this way or this way. Like, what kind of direction is that? Like, what's over here and what's over here? How do I know which way to go? So you have to power up the sounds with knowing, having best betting odds for Las Vegas for which way those vowels are going to go in words. So I'm going to show you the baby level, which is Mommy E. But I'll tell you, honestly, you've heard of Sparkly E, you've heard of Magic E. So Mommy E probably initially is going to make you think, well, that's just kind of like what I do. It's not. And the reason is it grows to something bigger when a simple little E at the end isn't going to cut it. But I am going to let you listen to him explain how he knows this.
So, when Mommy E tells the I to say its name in like, so it says like. It says I says its name like he's supposed to.
Now, that's not a phonics rule. That's what you do in life when your mama tells you to do something. When your mom tells you to do something and she's close enough to make sure you do it. And when she's not, you don't have to. So he doesn't have to memorize this. This is life as he knows it. That's why the word but it, that I can be short and lazy, but in the word but I, that I has to stand up tall and straight and say his name, because Mama E's one letter away, and she'll make sure he does what he should. Now, if Mama E's 2 letters away, that I does not have to listen, because Mama E's little arms aren't long enough to reach over 2 whole letters, get a hold of him and make him do it. She'll get him when he gets home, but for right now, he can do what he likes, and that's why that word's bitter, or that's why a word like butter isn't buter. So if you have a 4th grader who says he likes to put buter on his toast, it doesn't help a lot to just say, oh, you need to put another T, because his argument is why I don't hear another T. I know, but if you don't put the other T, then you won't have the open, you need to have the syllable. If the syllable is closed, then the vowel is going to be short, and when we divide, we say vowel, consonant, consonant, vowel, we divide between the 2 T's, in which case we have what we call a closed syllable, thereby dictating the vowel short. However, if you have buter on your toast, you would have a vowel, consonant, vowel pattern. That, Frank, is an open syllable, in which case that vowel will be long, so unless you want buter on your toast, you need to put another T. Now, that is the actual truth of phonics as an organizational structure for language. That is not something that you can easily give a 5-year-old to know how to read or write the word butter, or certainly even to a 4th grader who's struggling with this. As a matter of fact, as tricks go, that's a really tricky trick. It's almost easier to do it without the trick than it is with it. So much easier to know that if Mama is 1 letter away from another vowel, she's going to tell that vowel, you say your name, and by darn it, she'll get a hold of you and make you. But if she's too far away to reach, you don't have to. And if she's not there, which often she's not, because Mama sometimes just has got to get out of the house, she will put another vowel in charge. That's called the babysitter vowel. So boys and girls, if you see any vowel that's 1 letter away from another vowel, it's the babysitter. It's going to do exactly what Mom would if she were there. It's going to tell that letter that's 1 way away, you say your name. And just like you listen to Mom, you better listen to Uncle Fred tonight when I go out. So it's the same idea. Kids understand when they have a babysitter, same rules apply. When they have a substitute teacher, same rules apply. So you're just upping the ante with what they already know, but now you can look at words like hibernate or simple words like making, because the real irony here is kindergartners have to be able to read a word like making or motor or riding. There's all kinds of words that are low-level words where there isn't a pretty little E at the end that's going to guide you. You have to have other signals that grow with the text. So if you're working with upper grade kids, look how high
Mommy E
we get with this. I'm going to keep going. Like these words can be figured out. Words you've never laid eyes on before. You have best betting odds for Las Vegas when it comes to which way to go with a vowel. This trick alone for upper grade kids is incredibly eye-opening because they often don't have a clue what to do when they see a word that they don't already know. And vowels are everywhere in every word. So you may not be able to impart all the phonics secrets on them in one sitting. But this will let them have access to know which way the vowel is going to go, no matter what the word is, no matter how many syllables it is. Now, is it fail-proof? No. And by it, I mean phonics in general. Like the word have should behave based on phonics, right? Because there's an E at the end. The word river should be river because it's an open syllable, and yet it's not. But here's the fun part. Who is Superman in the movie when he's not Superman? Clark Kent. Who is Clark Kent in the movie when he's not Clark Kent? Is it hard for you to figure out if he's not one, then he's the other? It's like the next most obvious thing. So if the word have should behave and it's not working, don't make it an exception. Don't memorize it. Don't make it complicated. Just say, try the next most likely thing. If A is not being short and lazy, he's a superhero vowel. What else will he do? If he's not using his superpowers, he's going to be short and lazy. If he's not short and lazy, try a superhero sound. It's the easiest switch you could ever do. And it's the beginning baby step of something called cognitive flexibility, which is absolutely critical to advanced decoding. It's your ability to think out of the box using what you know that's in it. But if you don't know what's in the box, it's almost impossible to think out of it. So if everything is rules and exceptions, then it becomes very binary. You either can read it or you have to memorize it. You have to read it or you have to memorize it. But if you actually understand the whys, and this is kind of framed more behaviorally, then you can actually come up with the next most likely thing this little sucker's likely to do. Because you know it, you know him, you know the behaviors. So you don't have to worry if a vowel doesn't do exactly what it should. Try the next most likely thing. I actually had a kid figure this one out. Do you see the word synchronize and symphony? That is a Y hidden between other letters. He's clearly being sneaky, as Lex Luthor would. But he's not saying E or I. But he's not really fallen too far from the tree. He is using I's short and lazy sound. Would you put it past Lex Luthor to imitate Clark Kent at the Daily Planet? Like, not only is he gonna, you know how in the Tom Cruise movies where he morphs into other people? Okay, well imagine like a Superman movie where Lex Luthor could morph into Superman and impersonate Superman and then make him look bad. I think there was actually a movie like that where Superman was evil because he was being impersonated. I wouldn't put it past a sneaky Y to also, he's already in his closet, why not impersonate a short and lazy sound as well? And that's why we have a way to easily now explain why the I sound is a great way to attack other words like symphony, photosynthesis, systematic. Like it's just so neat to see when things make sense and you can come out with the next most likely thing to try. If Y made the A sound or the U sound or something that wasn't E or I related, then that would be more random. But when all he's doing is the next most likely thing, it's almost like a fun game. Like, what else can it be? What else can I try? What else do I know about this? And it becomes like a challenge for kids. And then you get the dopamine release. You get all the fun things that go with it.
AY and EY. These letters are just too cool. So, with thumbs up and their coolest voices, they say,
Hey. Hey.
Now, that's not sneaky Y, that's EY-AY. It's not sneaky Y because Y by himself can't make that sound. Only EY-AY can. And if you notice, superhero E off to the side, that's because she is their favorite superhero. Because again, you like the one that looks most like you. So in words like turkey or key, words where you get the E sound and not the A sound. That's the next most likely thing to try. So I'm going to kind of wrap here, but the goal is to give those pieces as many as you can, as soon as you can, so that kids really aren't just left in the dark to guess, like I am without my reader glasses trying to make sense of a menu, but they can actually be code breakers, and you can give them words, any words, and it's a challenge, and they love it because they don't have to have been taught the reading because they've been taught as the reader. And that's ultimately our goal, is to teach the reader, not the reading. And I hope, if you have any questions, because I know this was super fast, that you will come to the group, ask them, post. I will answer, other folks will answer, and I would just love for you to stay involved, connected, and keep me up to date on what you're doing once you start school again next year. So thank you so much.
Supposed to be washed up